myself an iPad user. I've been using an iPad almost daily for the past 4 to 5 years, but during that time, I've never really given the Android competition a fair chance, mostly because the majority of Android tablets are lower end, budget oriented options. But not this one. The Tab S8 is truly a premium tablet in every sense, from the specs to the build to the price tag. But does it do enough to win me over from the iPad? So let's start off with the design, and there's a few things I think the Tab S8 does better, and then other areas where I strongly prefer the iPad. So the build quality of the Tab S8 is excellent. Samsung went with their Armor aluminum frame, which they claim is 40% less prone to bending than the previous Tab S7. It feels sleek and premium in the hand, and it has some heft to it as well, coming in at about 10% heavier than the iPad Air. Taking a look around the rest of the tablet, we have a USB-C port on the bottom and the power and volume button on the right side of the tablet. There's a fingerprint scanner combined within the power button, but we also have the option for face unlock. So you get the best of both worlds in terms of unlocking the tablet. One thing the Tab S8 has that you won't find on the iPad is up to 1 terabyte expandable storage with a micro SD card slot. We've never had that as an option on any iPad ever, and that's a huge advantage if you're someone who tends to fill up your storage pretty quickly. The biggest design difference between this tablet and the iPad is the aspect ratio. The iPad has always had its classic 4:3 ratio, while the Tab S8 goes with a more desktop-like 16:10 aspect ratio. And it's clear that this tablet was designed to be used primarily in a landscape orientation. The front-facing camera placement is a pretty obvious indicator of that. So for things like gaming and watching videos and movies, this works out really well. It fills up the display nicely, and you have smaller borders than on the iPad. That being said, I feel that the iPad aspect ratio is more comfortable in most scenarios for a touchscreen tablet. I think it's because it's closer to that familiar 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so it feels perfect for things like note-taking or reading books, whereas the Tab S8 feels a bit narrow to use in portrait orientation. The display on the Tab S8 is wonderful. It's actually slightly sharper than the iPad Air and Pro display with 276 pixels per inch versus 264 on the iPads. It gets fairly bright with 500 nits peak brightness, and it has an adaptive refresh rate up to 120 Hz. So you get those nice smooth animations, although I did notice more occasional hiccups in the refresh rate than I do on the iPad Pro. The speakers are really solid as well. I'd say close to the quality of the iPad Air, but I would probably give the Air the slight advantage. Okay, so my number one complaint about the design of the Tab S8 is the placement of the S Pen dock, I guess you could say. It's on this magnetic strip on the back of the tablet, and I find this really inconvenient. It doesn't lay flat on a table. It's way too easy to pop off when throwing it in a bag because the magnets aren't very strong. And for some reason, it's non-reversible, so you have to attach it the right way or it won't stick well and won't recharge. And I just realized a couple days ago that I can attach the S Pen to the side of the tablet like on the iPad, which is great, but the only catch is that it won't recharge this way. The iPad's method of just attaching and charging the Apple Pencil on the side of the tablet is just much better. But let's go ahead and compare the S Pen to the Apple Pencil. In terms of aesthetics, the Apple Pencil has a very distinguished look to it, while the S Pen looks more like a generic stylus. The Apple Pencil is also longer, heavier, and has a wider diameter than the S Pen,